Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on healing from emotional abuse at the hands of someone who is narcissistic, psychopathic, moody, condescending, conceited, think that they're better than whoever, however you want to term this individual, however you want to classify them. You know, this person or a series of people might be very difficult for you. And the difficulty really, I would say, begins in the manipulation phase when you are disempowered, which is part of the tactics or really the playbook of someone who has a pathological sense of self-importance coupled with a lack of empathy. So if we can, get this sort of really boiled down, I want to really focus on what does it mean to be healing through this. And what does it mean, like a viewer here had inquired about a topic that I work in my book. One of the healing tools is that of having a mentor. In other words, someone who you look up to, admire. There's something about them, their appearance, their way, their inner quality, their inner light, that there's something about that you resonate or wish to emulate. And how do we sort of unfold this as part of the true healing process? If you've been in a damaging, toxic, overwhelming, confusing relationship with someone who it has been destructive or hurtful or harmful, it's caused you emotional pain, suffering, more than one day where you're going, what is going on here? Things that just don't seem to add up, but you have to sort of keep placating or being in a sort of relationship with this individual. In other words, relating with them despite the pain, talking with them, conversing with them without feeling that you're being heard, represented, or being acknowledged and or validated. So when we talk about a narcissist and a psychopath, so even though those are very different, it's sort of like it's the after effect, the hurt, the problem for quote unquote other people, the people who are in their environment, is they are going to be the ones to pay the price. What do we mean pay the price, peace and harmony? Is it $1? Is it $10? Could it be decades of your life? What is it worth to you? But you are normally going to feel, if you can't quite put it into words, that you are paying the price. Something just ain't right. You aren't growing. You aren't happy. You're not smiling. You're not skipping to my loo. You're not sleeping well. You're not eating well. You're not going out. You're not staying in. Things just are really at a diffuse and sort of conglomerated point that you can't really sort of break apart and wonder why there is this hurt, and you feel that you don't have something to look up to. Your go-go juice is marred. You've lost your mojo. This person's emotions are either too moody, too important, take priority over yours, meaning this becomes toxic. It becomes tainted. It becomes problematic. Yes, we're talking about a lot of words, but more importantly, we need to talk about an experiential state. That before words, to really understand what does it look like so you can have confidence with knowing that you can assert boundaries, which we've been talking about here on the channel. What are boundaries? Meaning, I have a certain standard. In other words, I need to be treated with respect, or I need to be, spoken to in a specific type of tone, or don't use this aggressive language. They talk about in the field of psychology how, they talk about physical abuse, child abuse, quote unquote discipline that involves slapping, punching, kicking, hitting, driving your nails in. These are all clearly forms of aggression and albeit violence, whether you want to call it domestic violence. A lot of people feel that that is, domestic violence is only between, a spouse, between adult partners, but domestic abuse can be committed against the most vulnerable of our society, meaning our youth or our older. Those people who cannot stand up and protect themselves or aren't allowed to know all the facts. So even you, being an adult and feeling like you should be able to have processed this, yet this is still really snagging you up. There's a lot that is unresolved. You do not have closure. You can't just pick up and go on. Something ain't fixed yet, and things keep continuing to sort of not get better, or the percentage of your days are spent feeling disempowered, i.e. dysregulated. That your standards have been ground down oftentimes to nil or non-existent, meaning your perspective does not matter when you are the victim of manipulation. So we're talking about not physical manipulation, which can leave a bruise, a broken bar, a broken bone, a police report, an x-ray. So-and-so twisted and broke my arm. This and this happened. You can point to it and go, we can treat this, peace and harmony. We see, or add in your name, we see that you have a physical injury. We can treat that. But here on the Peace and Harmony channel, we're really talking about other sorts of sordid affairs and abuse, namely that of emotional, psychological, manipulative abuse, brainwashing, word salad, all these big terms we talk about when you're dealing with someone who is narcissistic. And how can you really arrive at an internal locus of control, an internal reward system that allows you to see, process, and move and grow through this, what can be experienced as very traumatizing. A traumatizing relationship really is the end result. It is more of a trauma bond, which means it is a bond of fear instead of love, support, and those sort of things, those sort of warm, feel-good things. When someone goes, hey, high five, good job, or you did amazing in that. That's validation. I see where you want to choose the restaurant. I see where you want to stay home tonight. I see where you don't like to be treated this way. When someone can see into you, intimacy. I am sorry. I didn't mean to violate your boundaries. Those who trespass against us, like the Lord's Prayer. What does it mean? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. They talk about the prayer and how we forgive those who trespass against us, just as, in other words, there is a trespassing. So, in other words, and it is that trespassing in where people then experience the violation. And really what is, when we talk about, emotional abuse, it really is a form of aggression. When we're talking about being criticized, being belittled, not being acknowledged and validated, not being mirrored back, when we talk about problems in a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath, that person is devoid of sort of the neurological structure, if you will, the mirror neurons, which we are born with, which reflects empathy. It is a skill. It is an ability to go, oh my God, your car got repoed. Oh my God, what happened? Did you not pay the bill? And we go, oh my God, you had a tree fall through your house. I can't believe that. Or something, and we go, oh my God, I know what it's like to be in your shoes. You are not going to get that from the narcissist. Yet you won't be able to perceive that. It is oftentimes too triggering too traumatizing, and oftentimes, frankly, beyond people's skill set to be able to acknowledge and validate that they have not been acknowledged and validated. In other words, part of the narcissist and their success, why are they so good at being leaders, at being charming, at being stars, or whatever it is? They have this je ne sais quoi, a charisma that, allows people to just sort of follow them despite, other rationale or reasons. In other words, people override their own sense of standard and boundary. It becomes null and void when they're sort of captured by the relationship cycle, if you will. It is a pattern, albeit a very, very unhealthy one, but people might not discover the unhealthiness until many years or decades into this type or style of relationship. And the problem with the abuse, many studies have found when people come into therapy and trying to heal, that they are unerringly focused on the abuser. They cannot focus on themselves. They have effectively eliminated their own sense of self-importance, their own sense of self-esteem. In other words, their own sense of I matter, I'm here, I'm really feeling this, and this needs to be addressed. In other words, I need a commitment from you, honey. I need this and this. So something about your needs got ignored, got run over, annihilated, made unformed, indistinct, or not important when we're talking about this dynamic. And it's kind of like you don't know what you're missing until it's gone. In other words, you don't realize you're missing self-esteem. You don't realize because you cannot admit that you're feeling bad. Because the narcissist and the psychopath, they have a very powerful way of getting other people's to acquiesce, go along with, or follow in suit or trump according to their needs. In other words, their needs cry out louder, more important, more expensive, flashier, not to be questioned. In other words, the narcissist and psychopath will set it up so that their needs are what is attended to. What tactics do they use that annihilate your sense of I am without you knowing it? This is the insidious, horrible part. What does it mean to be insidious? In other words, insidious. Here at the Peace and Harmony channel, we are talking about psychology. We're talking about healing. We are talking about articulating feeling and be states that the psychopath and the narcissist have sort of taken out from or robbed you of. Jewel, they can take, the sparkle off your shoes, but they can't take your joy, or whatever her words were. They might have taken your golden shoes, but they didn't take your laughter. When we talk about the psychopath and the narcissist, and we talk about in reading that, the Psychopath Code by Peter Hingens, he talks about one of the telltale signs of a psychopath, and he goes, we're talking about really the more severe, it's really that you'll see that these people do not share in humor. They are not very funny. They don't really have a laugh. They don't, like we were saying in the previous video, they have a very limited range of emotions, a very limited color in their toolbox, if you will, of emotions, namely that of rage and aggression, really, and sort of that is about it. And the rage and aggression are what you'll see really underneath it all. But what if you see anything else outside of that? Dates, sexual alluring, whatever it is, the come here, come hither, baby, whatever it is that melts you into their arms, that is all pre-calculated, predetermined, and premeditated in terms of what they are going to get on the outcome and what they will not provide to you in terms of fulfillment, satisfaction, or acknowledgement and validation of yourself. Because of their lack of mirror neurons, it just ain't there. But they will put a lot of other things in front of it to make it seem as if. So, namely that of the superficial. That of, well, I've got the leg up here because I've got the bank account. I've got the leg up here because of the wonderful thing I does, because whatever excuse, because they've got a specific car, because they have a specific job, because they're a specific sex, because they've wanted this before, because they're meaner than you, because whatever. How many things can you list, even though you know it to be the case, what I really bought as important from the narcissist or the psychopath was? In other words, here we're doing an exercise to get past sort of your psychological defense mechanisms. In other words, being loyal to an abuser despite the fact that they have hurt you, despite the fact that they have lowered your standards, despite the fact that you have gone without. It's very important that you know what you have gone without in order to acknowledge and validate and erect your boundaries and then have that internal reward, which is more powerful than the external reward of the narcissist. But when you are in that very abusive relationship, it is very difficult to break the cycle. It is not easy. Why? Because the narcissist and the psychopath will make you appear or seem as if you are not blankety blank enough. You are not blankety blank enough. In other words, what are you, even though it might be unspoken, and not enough of? According to the psychopath or the narcissist, you know the person who has violated you, who is aggressive, maybe physically or verbally. It is important for you to really understand that emotional abuse is very violent. It is aggressive behavior. And that is why people will basically surrender and they will, become captives or victim of, very much like a Stockholm syndrome, like where somebody identifies with the abuser and begins to think, you know what, maybe they're right. I don't have this and that. I am not all this and that, but they have this and this. They are that and that. So I better just tag along, or I should just be so glad to be in the limelight of this individual that should be enough. Just despite the fact that they might not call you back, the fact that they might sort of give you these jabs in the gut, coupled with, the emotional cut downs, the lack of validation, the lack of agreement, the lack of laughter, sharing a moment with you. Why? Because laughter, there is an element of truth. And oftentimes the narcissist and the psychopath are living by a lie. People of the lie. You have to read, or view these channels. M. Scott Peck, People of the Lie. You need to understand that there are people in society or close at hand to you who might be of this type, who, in other words, in order to get what they want, it is contingent, it is dependent, it is pivoting on you playing their game. And if you're playing a game, there's going to be a winner or a loser. And do you really enjoy spending your days feeling that you have the potential to lose? Their moodiness, you might get that cruel side. So people walk on eggshells. They are flippant. In other words, if you don't do or say the right thing, if you are not, if you bring something up, which is normal, natural, healthy thing to do, you have to be able to tune in within and say, this is good, this is too much for me, I can't do this, or I can do this. You have to have a check-in state. This is, an internal locus of control. This is where we then get into the experiential feeling state, that which comes before language. So we actually go pretty deep here in terms of healing at the Peace and Harmony channel here, in terms of really dissecting it, in terms of reframing. Reframing, I feel, in healing is so crucial and important. This is advanced stuff here, y'all. So this is something that you are going to grow into, or someday it might congeal and come together. But what does it mean to really heal within? And like our viewer commented, said, like in part of the book that I'm working on, it is so important that you know and have a mentor, someone to look up to that is empowered, that has the qualities or has learned the lessons or something about them that you go, man, that is more of who I want to be, and not critical, condescending, false, living a lie, living this way. In other words, I am no longer living on the terms that have been extolled or promulgated or put forth or set forth by that type of relationship. And it is important to understand, furthermore, the part of the problem of keeping this relationship is it will continue to injure you even when they're not there. How awesome is that? If someone can allow the hurtful words that they have done, the looks, the withholding of information, the withholding of healthy mirror neurons, the withholding of validation and acknowledgement. It can, in other words, if they can do this sort of tainted treatment, tainted meaning made bad or impure, but can be addictive, quote unquote exciting, or quote unquote stimulating, i.e. not boring for other people to get caught up in or wrangling or wrestling with. And people will then accept this surrogate type of relationship, meaning one that is not founded on healthiness, support, acknowledgement, or validation. So when we talk about people, especially like those people who have eating disorders, anorexia or bulimia, there's been viewers here who have commented, that it's difficult for them to eat in the presence of someone that they love. In other words, they can't even nourish themselves, give life to themselves. They feel nervous because they're so attending to the abuser. In other words, they've lost their center of focus within, and they are so focused on without. What does the narcissist need? What does the psychopath want? What do I need to do to be their number one? I am on shaky ground, walking on eggshells. In other words, the uncertainty, the fear looms greater than peace and security and serenity. In other words, there is this constant chronic feeling of fear, anxiety, that something might happen. You constantly feel that you're in trouble, or they will hold that over you. You're going to be in trouble. You're not going to be loved. Whatever it is, how many people have fallen for this type of intimidation? In other words, they will use fear to manipulate. They will use these very covert or overt ways of being pushy, of telling you that the standard should be such and such a way, when in fact it is not true and it is not congruent, equal, or beneficial for you and yours, your happiness, your fulfillment at the end of the day, where you feel that you are enough. How many people have felt this anxiety that their moodiness can result in something problematic, and then unless you placate, do, or behave accordingly, you're going to have a pile of mess to clean up, or you're going to have, you're going to feel that you're responsible for something, i.e. this person's feelings. You cannot, i.e. I repeat, you cannot spend a life trying to take care of someone else's feelings. Jump when they say jump. Go when they say go. Do this, like a puppet. You have to look and acknowledge and validate. Yes, peace and harmony. This is what has thrown me off. And underneath it all, despite me going above and beyond, it is never enough. And again, I have a deeper wound, so that I have to always check in with the other person. They have supplanted, in other words, they have supplanted, they have put in, they have caused a manipulation. Meaning that they know that if they do something, they're going to get a reaction. That means you are powerless over things, and you feel you must give in, you must do, you must go, you must behave, you must feel worried, that the scales aren't balanced, and this is going to come back to hurt you, to bite you. Something is not right. This is a way for the narcissist or the psychopath to keep things gravely serious. In other words, you can't share a laugh. You ain't good enough. You ain't funny enough. Insidious means proceeding in a gradual, subtle way, but with harmful effects. This is a very particular word. In other words, they are treacherous. It is crafty. It is crafty, meaning these are the people where all of a sudden you think you're in like Flynn, but then you find that you're out because you don't have the clout. You found out something in an email, a text, that they're just using another straw to break your back. And then the narcissist, the psychopath, with the bigger check, the bigger jaw, the bigger butt, whatever it is that they have, longer hair, longer fingernails, I don't care what it is. Maybe they have a longer hangnail. What is it? You need to write it down. What has this person done, made you believe that they are better than you? More important than sign language. I worked with special services for some time. I have been working in special service, including the population that uses sign language. And the word for sign language for important is this. If you take from underneath and you go up like this and together, meaning on top of the heap, you go like this, everybody up here, important. Meaning you're number one, you're on top. Like if you see something on top of a hill, the penthouse view, they are important. Where are they? The penthouse view, that they have made you believe that they are above it all, and that if you could only ride on their coattails or whatever it is, that you are better than. Where did you non-verbally, physically feel this, accept this, and still have this churning and processing within? This is a B state. This is a physiological state that's important for you to come really understand specific terms, like our viewer said, how can I get a mentor? And she mentioned that I am a mentor. So I really appreciate that, because we're talking about healing here, which oftentimes, if you go into even the regular and go into for psychologist appointment, counseling appointment, it might be half an hour long, 55 minutes long, where they're not really getting to it and they don't really get it. We're really here to really fine tooth comb things over into the right direction and get you out of, where the S hits the fan. So the S on the fan ain't hitting you anymore. Like our viewer said, how can you speak more about having a mentor? You need to be able to know who, what, why, where, and when your mentor is. And why do you have this gravitas? Why do they have this gravitas to them? A gravitas, we're using words here. Oh, peace and harmony. You're getting too much. Well, in other words, a gravitas, someone who has a certain dignity, a certain seriousness, or a solemnity of manner. In other words, there's something that they exude. In other words, you're there. You're now important. You're now the one who's got the penthouse key. And that's within. We're talking about your internal real estate, because they will plow over you like a Hummer souped up SUV and take you more and others, including names, to be this way. And why do they get to have this power over you or others? What is it? When did you silently agree? You really need, and when you watch these videos, these are designed like the book that I'm working on, and we do a lot of the exercises here. Who, what, why, when, and where, if you can get it, did this person waltz right in being able to slam you, hurt you, take you down emotionally? Where did they have that first leverage over you? You might need to watch this video a couple times. You might need to get out your recovery book. This is part of really an important question. And these questions are designed for you to answer uniquely, meaning unique to you, you, my viewer, you right here. And this might change for you moving forward. In other words, you begin to see the light. In other words, but you have to have that initial courage, to declare and say, I have another mentor. In other words, if they have selected me, well, I am honored. A mentor should be someone who you look up to, that you admire, and not, just like, oh, wow, like Kim Kardashian, if you say, I really love her as a mentor, I mean, her hair or whatever, we need to go a little bit deeper here. In other words, who is your mentor? Who, not that you idol, but who do you really look up to? Is it a religious figure? Are you, who, kind of is your, someone who you look up to? Is it a political figure? Is it someone that you know in your neighborhood? Is it a movie star? Is it an artist? Is it someone, from previous generations? Is it Abraham Lincoln? And do you know why you would like to model yourself, or why you look up and why you would like to emulate this person? What is it about them? We will gravitate and have our heartstrings pulled by specific people. Why is it? Usually there's something in their form of expression. For example, I really admire the singer-songwriter Jewel. She was able to be really, despite all sorts of different hardships and things, she was able to write and sing and has a beautiful voice, that she has within, and that cannot be taken from her. And you know what? And that is amazing. To me, that is inspiring. Someone who, despite, and where she lived and not having like plumbing, and she, you can read about her, but you have your own person. And, and she has a specific I am. And once you realize that you have something that cannot be broken or taken, marred, tainted, dulled, that you are far enough away, that you have an internal I am that cannot be perverted, touched, distorted, or made to be reduced, especially in a standard or a boundary. You really, really, really need to become familiar, and it doesn't mean you need to get it right away, but you need to acknowledge that these are where the hurts, the trespasses have been violated, and you need to own that, meaning peace and harmony in working through these things, and you admit it to yourself in the privacy of these videos. Peace and harmony. I can see where I was taught to believe, and not only believe, but to feel that I was not enough, that I could not make it, that I was a bad person, or something as serious, and that because of this, you felt you were constantly in trouble, could not make it, or feel a constant chronic feeling of anxiety and fear because of a seed that was planted by a look, by a slamming of a door, by a negative comment that was, trapped within you. You need to know and really see that that starts and stops with the abuser. And you need to sort of witness that from a role of metacognition, which is really, when we talk about psychology here, we talk about an aspect of you that you have that has the ability to think about what you're thinking about. So the role of sort of metacognition. In other words, that you can kind of see now. In other words, you come to the purity and strength, sort of that penthouse, I am important view. And you can look now, not that you look down or become as the narcissist or psychopath, because you do not want to share in that energy energetically. David Hawkins, Power versus Force. The narcissist will use that sort of reactivity, which is force, which, is designed to overpower you, dismantle you, and make you less powerful than them because you present a threat. And people don't realize how powerful you truly are, but that cannot be realized or lived in relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath, because they cannot simultaneously be supportive and allow you to raise up, because you threaten their I am, their supply source. If you're still believing the lie, if you haven't put your foot down, if you're still walking in their shadow, if you're still saying, yeah, I've got to be on your bootstraps because I sure am less than this, whatever. You have then believed their lie. You have swallowed a big old horse pill of bologna sausage, bullwinkle, snap whatever, snap jujubes. You have swallowed their manipulation. It's time to say, you know what? I'm getting this out of the fiber of my being and my I am, because they will create it so it will be restrictive. It'll be, very reactive. You'll feel that underneath it all, you might be in trouble. Why is it? You are not in trouble. And that is so difficult. Like our viewers who have been up against, dare I say, just in the proximity of, not in a relationship. A relationship requires relatability. In other words, it requires some give and take. And some people, like we're saying earlier in the video, by virtue of this type of relationship, they have to constantly think about this other person. How much of your day, ere I say, while you're brushing your teeth, eating, preparing, everything, is in worry or thought or concern or trying to get ready for the narcissist or the psychopath? How much of your day is worried about them and what is going on with them, and you are not at all truly in your own shoes? You're just sort of worried because of what has occurred before. You might see them, you might run into them, they might call you, or you have not had closure and you are not moving on. The narcissist or the psychopath, they will keep you along as supply. What is supply? Just going along with their bullarchy, going along with whatever their intimidation is, their emotional bullying. You need to acknowledge, validate, and own that this might have, worked before because you did not know better. You did not see. They made it appear as if they were better than, they had power over. But you can see you will not be a very popular vote with them if you say, I ain't taking that. I ain't living life on those terms. Because if you have your own terms, meaning your own I am, meaning I don't want to be just shut out, or I want to earn my own money, or I want to have my own credit, or I want to make my own decisions, or I want to have a specific lifestyle, or I want to have kids, or I want to travel, or I want to have love. I don't want to be yelled at. Your list, you really, really, really need to get familiar with this list and realize your list ain't bad. There's nothing wrong with what you want and need. Just because the narcissist will sublimate, meaning, oh, honey, well, why don't you just take this credit card, even though I'm not here? This will, the narcissist will, leave you in the dark a lot, in feeling that you can't share the light with them. So you might have reduced your standards and reduced or eliminated your boundaries. And this is internal stuff. So, you need to get really familiar with where was this broken down. And when you see that what they did was really, maybe you forgive them. They were doing the best that they could to take care of themselves. Okay? And say, you know what? In that situation, I was witness to a person who is merely going after their needs and nothing else. It has nothing to do with me. So realize whatever it is that they did, where they gave you the short end of the stick, where you did not have a chance to have a two-way talk, a two-way coming to Jesus, coming to whoever, coming to Lady Gaga, whoever it is, coming to the table, whatever you call it, our Friday night thing, our walk, But how many times have you had to put up and put up and put up and had it pressed down? This is the psychological concept of repression and oppression, not being able to speak up. This is on a parallel, with other countries on a larger scale, where it's like, yeah, we need clean water, but it ain't happening. We need lawfulness and order, but it ain't happening. The same thing is your experience on a smaller level. Your needs have been reduced to the size of a postage stamp or smaller, or, not even accounted for. And then you feel that you can't be accountable and responsible or dependable as a person. You feel shaky. I cannot, I have to file disability. This is where you can't feel enough, that you are not enough, that at your job, you're shaking in the knees. You can't be promoted, even though you kind of think you could do it, but you've got emotional problems. You have emotional problems in your kids. Even though, they're at school, they cannot focus. They are not able to, they are failing out of school, even though they're intelligent, or they're failing out of their job, or they feel that they're failing out of life. They cannot have love. They cannot have a puppy. They cannot have their own place. They can't have a bike. Whatever it is, what is it that you feel that you can't have? And this oftentimes is started with a be state. An I am. In other words, because of your feeling, you have not had experience enough, to be taught, to know, to have validated from a person, which is a good person. Maybe you have shut those good people out. You have put blinders on. In other words, everything else does not matter except the narcissist. That your life, that they have you wrapped around their finger. You are learned helpless. In other words, you have been taught. You have then learned something erroneous. Now you're living by, erroneous thoughts that you can't go for this. You can't go for that. You can't have a hobby. You can't make a money. You can't go anywhere. How many of you are living by your can't rather than your cannot? This is called learned helplessness. This is, negative validation. These are for the people who have eating disorders, bulimia and anorexia. They have negative validation. They cannot even eat. They have nutrition issues. They have body issues, body shaming issues. They cannot fill out their figure, because they cannot even do the very basic act of nutrition and eating. How many, this shows you the power of metacognition, the ability of the human being, which is a very complex species, which you need to have reverence for and feel that you are sacred, okay? Because you have been mistreated at the hands of a selfish, narcissist, or psychopath. Even if they drive a Tesla, a car, a house, a mansion, a job, a title, whatever it is, whatever, despite that, it does not matter. You need to really get to the be state where you really are realizing the power of concepts. We're talking really about some deep healing here, folks. We're talking about eliminating concepts of judgment that have steered the ship, that have steered your feeling, your I am, who you declare yourself to be formally, as if it is so important. Like I read in a book, Stuart Wilde, he's talking about a mentor, and his book on miracles. Miracles exist. How many of you say, I need a healing miracle? Well, you need to want it, like Stuart Wilde says, and you will notice I always give credit to people here, because so much of this really rings true. He says you have to want change and healing and growth, really as if you had your head underneath a water spigot and you could not, you were about to drown, and you said, get me out from under this water spigot. I need to breathe. You need to have that degree of like, I cannot breathe. Like you are really at the, you are there. You don't need to though hit rock bottom and have an all out situation and cause yourself a lot of grave, injuries. You can have clarity here. You can have beauty here. You can have feel-good moments by declaring your freedom and realizing and acknowledging and validating internally, not external validation, not, where you have a reward coming from without. You're not getting a lollipop. You're not getting a lick on the stick or whatever. You're not getting a smile from them, because oftentimes people have lived their life to the degree that they, then finally, the person might smile and then they feel their life can go on, or they finally and then their life goes on. This is called walking on eggshells, and my eye feels like it is shaking, for our people, because I am feeling the hurt of you people and how long, you have been suffering for, feeling that your life has bottomed out, that you're relegated to the basement. As if, like Cinderella, you're waiting for, someone to come up and say, oh my God, we found this glass slipper that was custom made. It can only fit one person, and then that person is you. This is kind of like a little bit like your glass slipper, men and women, and you're fit, you're fit on your feet, saying, oh my God, I can see, the penthouse, the internal penthouse here, peace and harmony, and I've given it to myself. In fact, a treat for yourself. We talk about the recovery date, the recovery gift, and these other things. You really need to take these and do these consistently and internally reward yourself. When you own and acknowledge, how were you taken down? How did they get one over on you? How did you then go without? This can be very scary to acknowledge and validate and go, OMG, peace and harmony. I went without this warmth. I went without this. And this is your skin, your physical body needs this. So you need to understand and have reverence for the physical body, for the heart, for the etheric body, the emotional body, the one that has suffered, that one that has said, I'm frustrated, the one that says, I'm so embarrassed that I can't help myself and I'm ashamed. You do not need to live in shame. You need to live in victory for that penultimate important, where you are important, where you're number one, above and beyond. So a healthy relationship can say, you know what, I'm important, but you're important too. In other words, when you go to a doctor is going to say, you're important that I see you, but I'm important too. In other words, this needs to work for the both of us. I'm not going to triple book you, because I'm not going to do that to myself. You need to have a two-way street. You need to be important. You are important. So you need to feel that. You need to know what that looks like, feels like, as it's right for you, and realize where you had downgraded yourself, and then what happened as a result of that. Because you were taught to believe, and you swallowed the big old horse pill, that you are not important, that you're not to believe, that you're a horrible person, that and that you felt that or believed that, and then what did it cause you to do? And then you go, wow, oh my God, I am so far from that now, peace and harmony. I can't even put on that shoe. Those pants that I was wearing back then, man or female, peace and harmony, I ain't wearing those pants anymore. It ain't looking like that on me. Then you know what? You need to acknowledge and validate that internally yourself and see how they got one over on you. And that, even though that is, you can just now say, that is who they are, and I'm no longer an energetic match for an abuser. I'm no longer a good fit for being pushed around. I'm no longer a good fit for being ignored. You know what? I'm no longer a good fit for being disrespected. It ain't, I'm too big for that now. I'm wearing the big girl pants. I'm wearing the big boy shoes. And you need to know what that means for you. And you need to give that to you, yours truly. Number one, you are not number 47. Okay, you are not just waiting for your life to continue based on that, because those relationships, oftentimes why it's problematic is the manipulation, a one-way street where you're living according to their terms, according what, so that they look good. In other words, it might not look good if you have to have a discussion, with them, or you might call them out, or you might hold them accountable, or you're accountable to yourself. And those relationships can be scary, get ugly, might mean that someone has to have a divorce, someone has to swallow their courage, but you need to be able to say, okay, I am gentle with myself, and I'm no longer a good fit, and I can now identify what manipulation is, and I can grow in awareness. I can grow in awareness and see where I fell in the trap, and I can say no now and be gentle. And if not that, then this. So that's kind of really big now. When we talk about changing behaviors, I had a great friend when I was growing up, through my high school, through my college and university, who was a great just a great person. And, he always gave an example, like if you're giving up something like a bad habit, and it couldn't be a bad habit, like in other words, I eat before I go to bed, or I smoke too much, or I drink too much, or I swear. But a bad habit might be an internal habit. You might have a bad emotional habit where you are still feeling under the gun, under the terms and conditions, under the boundaries and standards of an abuser. And you haven't vocalized that. And you can say, I'm still living afraid. In other words, you have a emotional habit internally which needs to be corrected. In other words, you're validating yourself for still being afraid. You're saying, yup, you're right. You still better be afraid, because this and this, they could be unhappy, and I better be, ready to jump and make them happy. So you might have some negative emotional habits. That's why we talk about our elopement date, where we go on dates and you are specifically exercising a new emotion. In other words, that of joy, that of, self-care, that of learning how to nutrition yourself, or drink appropriately, or change a negative emotional habit. One of, some of our viewers, they cannot even look in the mirror. They cannot go from their house. They are still so afraid. They are hindered and restricted because of these negative emotional states, because, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, a feeling state which could occur over a couple of days, repeated over time, a bad day can become a bad mood, and if it's continued over a couple of days, that mood can then become reinforced if you're around the wrong people, and that can become a temperament. And a temperament repeated over time, that can become a personality trait. And a personality trait, repeated over time, reinforced either internally or externally, can become a B state, or who you become. I think, therefore I am. Father of, some of the New Thought movement. What is it? William James. This is very powerful stuff here. You can see through what you thought was cloudy. You can see clearly now when the clouds are gone. You can come to this channel and you can realize and exercise these things and talk more about a mentor. In other words, what do you really need to aspire to? What does it look like? And what does it feel like? And how can I write these out and reinforce these so that they are reinforced, so that you can have, instead of, being taken down, feeling bad for a day, not being able to focus on your work because this person is causing problems, not being able to focus at your school, failing a course because, your emotions were running amok. This is very serious stuff here. This can affect who you become, your I am. So you really, really want to give your body a chance. And before we wrap this up, we really want to give yourself your I am. So really realizing that all of your senses, your 6 senses, you really do need to work on, own, and begin the journey of self-accountability and saying, I deserve. So you deserve, you deserve, you deserve. And if you then have boundaries and standards and these expectations, when you hold space within for this, repeated over time, you will find that life will echo and will reinforce you and will, reward you handsomely or beautifully for this. So you need to have faith inside. Guess what? If the narcissist or the psychopath, if they never allowed you your B state, then you can say that, oh my gosh, wow, I discovered this, that I was never able to really grow and be who I wanted because I am not a good fit for an abuser. I am no longer a good fit and, to be talked to this way. I deserve better. My boundaries, meaning what I have here within, say that does not work here. This is the positivity zone, is if you entered into it, just like if you were to get a big atlas map or a MapQuest, you have entered the positivity zone. This is the I respect me zone. I respect. I respect. I am sacred. I witness the miraculous. I deserve. And so be it. And so it is, and it is done. And when you process that new cycle and practice that again and again and again, you need to articulate, meaning with the verb, out loud. You might need to say this outside. You need to say it within. You need to repeat this over and over. If you're just starting, you need to write this 1,000, 2,000, maybe 10,000 times. Go get a notebook until you get it, okay? Until you feel it, until you be it, until you are it. And you realize that narcissist, you could see all those little tricks and ploys were nothing but tricks and ploys to try to get their needs met while devoiding you of yours. They made them as if they didn't exist. Hey, guess what? You do need your hand held. Hey, guess what? You do need a pat on the back. I'm here to give you a high five. Let me hold your hand. Let me give you a big air hug. You do need it. It did hurt. It is bad. It is not fair. Your time is limited, and your time is your greatest commodity. Just because you might have been taught or felt that your time was not worthwhile, that the narcissist had a better rug, a better job, a better football, a better blanket, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that you are not enough. That is erroneous or flawed thinking. You need to realize where that was set and then to hold your head up high. And like our viewer said, yes, if you say peace and harmony is your mentor, then be clear about who your mentor is. Know who it is. Embrace your mentor. Know that you look up to people because you have a quality that resonates or matches that person, because you own it. You possess it. The narcissist does not own or possess you. They will project, oh, that you are possessive, that you are too needy. It is nothing more truly than the other way around. They are the ones that are possessive. They are the ones that are needy. They are the ones that are controlling. They are the ones who are making those false accusations. So you need to have that separation and that distinction, and really allow that, and that B state, which really needs to come really from all senses, including the skin, including the taste, including the sound, including the sights, including the sense. So we talk about this more and sort of, how do you really reinforce these? So really quickly, what is an example? Well, we're going to go into that on another video, because I have a number of different tools that I will bring in. But you need to really work and then go back with the other videos where we talk about resensitizing yourself and, getting things structured, meaning having a new routine, because a new routine brings new habits and new learning, new experiences, new reflections, new moods, and new B states. And then eventually you'll be more empowered to create more of who you become, and derived more according to your vision, and self-rewarding for that, and not what has been rewarded by a manipulator. So in other words, where you have things on your terms, and that is okay. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. And a quick shout out to those of you who have recently donated. Thank you so much for your support. It is truly appreciated. Have a beautiful day.